The Miami Grand Prix may have ended with champagne and celebration, but the drama was far from over. In a stunning post-race twist, Red Bull and Max Verstappen filed a formal complaint to the FIA targeting Mercedes' George Russell. The accusation is that Russell failed to slow down appropriately under double-waved yellow flags when Oliver Behrman's Haas came to a halt, triggering a virtual safety car. The consequences of that alleged infraction: a controversial pit stop that handed Russell the final podium position, snatching it away from the reigning world champion by a mere 2.3 seconds. Verstappen, who had been trailing Russell, immediately questioned the legality of the move over team radio, setting the stage for an official protest. What started as a promising weekend for the four-time champion quickly spiraled into frustration. After claiming pole position, Verstappen faced immediate pressure as the lights went out. Having initially held the lead off the line, Verstappen faced a challenge from Lando Norris in lap 1 before the Briton went wide, allowing Kimi Antonelli and Oscar Piastri through in the process. The Dutchman managed to keep Piastri at bay for several laps, but the McLaren's pace proved too much to handle. On lap 14, Piastri forced Verstappen into a crucial mistake at turn 1, taking a lead he would never relinquish. A resurgent Norris would soon follow through, dropping the world champion to third, but the real blow came later when Russell's well-timed pit stop during a virtual safety car period leapfrogged him ahead of Verstappen. When asked about his race, Verstappen said,
"Yeah, we just didn't have the pace. We just were overheating a lot on the tires, so it was just quite a bit of a struggle out there. And then of course we got a bit unlucky with the VSC as well, but that's racing as well."
The final result: a devastating P4 finish with race winner Piastri a whopping 39 seconds ahead. To truly understand this controversy, we need to rewind the clock to the heart of the Miami Grand Prix, a race defined by blistering heat, high tire degradation, and razor-thin margins. As the laps ticked by, George Russell found himself in a tight battle with Max Verstappen for the final spot on the podium. Up ahead, the two McLarens were out of reach. The fight for P3, however, was anything but settled. Then came the twist. On lap 28, the race was neutralized when Oliver Behrman's Haas suffered a mechanical issue, grinding to a halt just off the racing line. A virtual safety car was deployed, one of 3 during the race. And that's where the critical moment unfolded. George Russell, just behind the incident zone, saw the yellow flags being waved and made a split-second decision: dive into the pits for a set of medium tires. Under VSC conditions, pit stops cost significantly less time, and Russell's call allowed him to rejoin the track ahead of Verstappen. That decision would ultimately earn him the final podium spot, but not without controversy. From the Red Bull pit wall and Verstappen's cockpit, alarm bells were ringing. Verstappen radioed his team immediately, questioning whether Russell had properly slowed under the yellow flags. It wasn't just a frustrated driver venting, it was a subtle yet pointed accusation that set the wheels in motion for what would become a formal protest to the FIA after the checkered flag. While the post-race drama centered on Russell and Verstappen, the true story of the day was McLaren's commanding performance. Oscar Piastri secured his 3rd consecutive Grand Prix victory, extending his championship lead over teammate Lando Norris to 16 points. From 4th on the grid, Piastri played the patient game. He gained a spot when Norris ran wide at turn 2, quickly dispatched Antonelli, and then methodically hunted down Verstappen. Norris, who recovered from his first lap setback to claim P2, was less diplomatic about his battles with the Red Bull ace. Now let's dig into the legal and technical layers that underpin this case. The rule in question is Appendix H of the FIA's International Sporting Code. It states in no uncertain terms that under a double-waved yellow flag, a driver must reduce speed significantly and be prepared to change direction or stop. The key phrase here is reduce speed significantly. But what exactly does that mean? And more importantly, who gets to define significant? According to Red Bull, Russell's actions did not meet the threshold. While onboard footage and telemetry did show a throttle lift, Red Bull argued that this did not translate into a meaningful speed reduction. They asserted that Russell's absolute speed through the yellow flag sector was not slower than it had been prior to the yellow flag being displayed. In simpler terms, yes, Russell lifted his foot off the accelerator, but he didn't go any slower. Christian Horner, team principal of Red Bull, explained their position. He said, We felt that Russell has done something that is in breach of the regs as they are written, so that's why we put a protest in today. More than anything, you want clarity. The regulations say there should be a reduction in speed. It doesn't talk about a lift, it talks about a reduction in speed. Their argument was built on a comparison. Max Verstappen, who followed Russell through the same zone, did reduce his speed more noticeably. In Red Bull's view, Verstappen's behavior was the benchmark for proper compliance, while Russell's looked like a tactical lift, just enough to check a regulatory box without compromising race time. Mercedes, of course, had a different interpretation. Their defense was grounded in both precedent and technical analysis. According to Mercedes, Russell lifted the throttle by approximately 25%, resulting in a 30% drop in engine torque. That, they said, constituted a significant reduction as required by the regulations. They also cited telemetry comparisons with other drivers to show that Russell's response was consistent with what the FIA and other teams consider acceptable in a yellow flag zone. Furthermore, Mercedes argued that it is common practice, a critical term in F1 regulatory debates, for a driver to signal compliance by lifting the throttle rather than slowing to an arbitrarily low speed. They insisted that this protocol has long been understood between teams and the FIA. So unless a driver blatantly ignores a flag and maintains full throttle, a measurable throttle lift should suffice. The stewards evaluated all available evidence: onboard camera angles, sector times, throttle traces, torque outputs, and GPS data. They concluded that Russell had lifted sufficiently to demonstrate awareness and compliance with the yellow flag, even though his absolute speed through the zone had increased slightly. This last point is crucial. The FIA clarified that discernible reduced speed is not necessarily about going slower in raw numbers, but about reducing pace relative to racing speed in that specific zone. For example, in a braking zone, a driver may naturally slow down even under green flags, but that doesn't indicate they've responded to a yellow. So the stewards argued that relative speed reduction, not just absolute speed, is the correct benchmark. In their words, the speed of car 63 in the yellow flag zone was considerably slower than the regular racing speed, but the absolute speed while passing through the yellow flag zone increased slightly. The requirement can only relate to reduction relative to the regular racing speed. The document explaining the stewards' decision outlined that Red Bull accepted Russell did lift the throttle, but believed this did not slow him down enough and therefore went against the regulations. In essence, the FIA sided with contextual interpretation over strict numeric thresholds. It was a vote for nuance over rigidity.